Let's go to the hotline. We are so pleased to be joined by a Texas legend, soon to be immortalized in the Texas High School Football Hall of Fame. We are joined by Texas Tech star and Odessa Bronco legend, Rodney Allison. Mr. Allison, how are you?
Greg, I'm doing excellent. How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, and I imagine that you're doing pretty well this week as leading up to Saturday, the Texas High School Football Hall of Fame induction ceremony, which we will stream live on TexanLive.com coming up. Now, you're a member of the Texas Tech Hall of Fame and the Southwest Conference Hall of Fame, but what does this one coming up on Saturday to enter into the Texas High School Football Hall of Fame? What does that mean to you?
Well, Greg, to be honest with you, I didn't think I would ever get into this one. I mean, but it's probably as big a thrill as the other two. And I mean, because as a kid, and I'm going to tell this story at the banquet, I remember distinctly as an 11-year-old boy with a transistor radio under my blanket, uh, listening to Abilene Cooper play Austin Reagan, and I think it was 1967, and Jack Mildren was the quarterback at Abilene Cooper, and they lost on the right there at the end of the game, but that kicked off pretty much me in the Texas high school, and I played at Texas high school. I coached here as a college coach, and have always had the deepest respect for not only Texas high school football, but Texas high school coaches. And that little night under the blanket with that little transistor radio was kind of my kickoff to that love affair with, Texas high school football. So it's going to be really neat. Me and Coach McGuire have had a lot of fun with it in the last couple of months. So it's been kind of neat.
Yeah, that actually leads me to another question because your job now, you're the executive director of the Double T Varsity Club there, which caters to former men and women athletes at the Texas Tech,
Right.
your alma mater. You're going in alongside, I guess, another local. There up there in Lubbock with Coach McGuire. I was interested, as a Texas high school football player and a Texas high school football icon there at Odessa, when they announced the hire of Joey McGuire to be the next head coach of the Red Raiders, what was your reaction?
Well, I didn't know who he was. I mean, I'd heard about him and, kept up with him just kind of through the channels when the speculation started. But it's been a great deal. He's got an energy I mean, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, every day he's the same. But here's an interesting story. Me and Coach Barr, he'd been here about 3 days, and Kirby Hocutt, the AD, asked me to drive him down to Midland to see some of the former players and some of the donors down in the Midland area. And so I picked him up, and we drove to Midland. We're two old ball coaches, and shit, we can talk to each other for hours. And he mentioned something like he had to be in Waco on May 7th for this deal. And I said, well, Coach, I got to be in Waco too on May 7th. And that's how we found out that we were going into this together, was in the car driving to Midland, just having a conversation. And hell, he started high-fiving me in the car. I mean, this dude, but that's how, and I don't think I'd met him till that day. I met him that morning, picked him up, drove to Midland, and that's how we kind of got introduced to each other, was finding out that we were both going into this Hall of Fame. It was kind of neat, to be honest with you, that out of the 8 people or whatever it is going in, the 2 were sitting in this car driving to Midland, and neither one of us knew about it.
Well, yeah, I was going to say that's quite a way to find out about your Hall of Fame bunkmates, Rodney Allison.
Yeah, he's a good man too.
Rodney Allison joined us here on Texas Football Today. All right, you are among the many honors that you had. You were an All-State quarterback back in 1973 for Odessa. And people probably around that part and Texas high school football fans may know you for most for the rivalry game with Permian back there in '73. 3 touchdowns passing, another 79-yard touchdown run, etc. How often do you get when people realize who you are and they're meeting you? How often does that game in particular get brought up to you?
I was fortunate. I've been in a bunch of big games because I've coached college football for so long, and I was at Clemson, Auburn. I've been in some big games, really big games at Alabama and Tennessee and Georgia and, all over the place. And I'm not sure I've even to this day felt the way I did that day in that atmosphere that I'm not sure I've ever felt that feeling again. And it was just unbelievable because if you'll remember, the game ended up 41-36. We had the ball on the 3 or 4 inch line with 8 or 9 or 10 seconds to go, last play of the game, and we didn't get it in. And that play has haunted me to this day. I mean, it literally, it's one I've never forgotten because, Permian, if you'll remember, it was Joe Bob Bazell, it was Ray Nunez. I mean, them boys were some dudes back in the 70s, Permian, teams and the dynasty they built during that era. But it was just always a great rivalry that we were never able to overcome them. I mean, they found a way to win when possibly we played maybe a little bit better than they did that night, but they found a way to win. But, that game's always been a special one to me that I've never forgotten to this day.
So you're telling me, because you were a coach at UT Chattanooga, the head coach there, you were an assistant coach at Auburn, you coached Brett Favre at Southern Miss and all this fun stuff, and you're telling me that a high school game from 50 years ago, not to date you here, but from 50 years ago is the one that sticks in your craw the most?
It does. There's one more that we played Texas here, and University of Houston here in '76 here in Lubbock, and we were 8-0 and they were 8-0, and they beat us. I threw an interception at the end of the game, and those are the two plays that have pretty much. And you've got so many great plays and things throughout your career, coaching and playing, but it's kind of those two that you didn't quite make that always kind of stick in your craw the most. So yeah, I still remember both of them.
You were the Southwest Conference MVP back in 1976 when you led Tech to a share of the SWC title back in '76. When you look back on that season, which was obviously so special, probably the most special year in what was a really special career out there at Tech. What are your lasting memories from that season that was so remarkable for you?
Well, that season was a great year for. Southwest Conference was a powerhouse back then. And, it had your Darrell Royals, your Frank Broyles, your Emory Billards, those guys that are legendary Texas, coaches. And, those days were just unbelievable. And, a young guy named Steve Sloan came into Texas Tech, and we were able to have a spectacular year. And, we beat Texas here that year. And, Earl Campbell was playing at Texas. And, just the whole surroundings of everything that took place in the Southwest Conference and the quality of the league and the quality of the players and the tradition of the conference. And, it was just unbelievable. And Houston comes into the conference, I think in 75 or 4 or somewhere around in there. And, just the whole deal was a dynamic deal with SMU and TCU and A&M and Baylor. And it was just a great conference and great competition and great coaches and great players during that era.
And I have to ask you, because this is Dave Campbell's Texas Football around here. I'm holding the 1977 edition of Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Perhaps you're familiar. Many people call it the most handsome edition of the magazine.
Yeah, right.
Because and obviously the cover is a different thing now than it was then. We usually set up a photo shoot and stuff like that. Did you know you were going to be on the cover, or did it just show up on your store shelf one day and like, oh, there I am?
I can't remember, to be honest with you, but I'm as proud of that as I've probably ever done. But that's an honor just to be able to be on Dave Campbell's magazine and the history of that magazine and the great articles and just the whole dynamic of Dave Campbell. And I was fortunate enough when I came back to Lubbock here until he passed away to have several conversations with him. And I always thought the world of him and what he did and the accomplishments, and that whole magazine and everything that was involved with it was first class and one of the great magazines in the history of this state, I think.
He's Rodney Allison. He is soon to be an inductee in the class of 2022 in the Texas High School Football Hall of Fame. You can watch it live on Texan Live Saturday. Mr. Allison, we sure appreciate your time. Congratulations again on the honor, and we're looking forward to seeing you and honoring you on Saturday.
Well, thank you, and I look forward to seeing all of y'all.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. There he goes, Rodney Allison, Texas High School Football Hall of Fame inductee, class of 2022.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you would like more and to be notified when they come out, go ahead and click that subscribe button right down there. You can also watch Texas Football Today every day live at noon on TexasFootball.com, Facebook, Twitch, and right here on YouTube. For more of the best coverage of Texas football in the Lone Star State, go to TexasFootball.com/subscribe.